All right, hey, it's Joe Gallegos with Lord's Capital. We are on the second episode. I'm here with
Thomas Garcia.
And as I guess you know now, Thomas Garcia is an LSU fan. he only has one uniform, and it's LSU.
I'm loyal.
But to be fair, it's always like, hey, Thomas, we need you today.
I mean, I got a full month to prepare for this one, right?
What is I guess LSU? It's what, baseball season?
Yeah.
How are they doing?
They're okay. They're ranked. I mean, they have a lot of offense, but they're playing some guys that shouldn't be playing on the field. So they got some transfers from Arizona. I think that the manager promised them playing time. So we have like the worst fielding percentage. So we'll smoke people out like 5-2, 9-1 or something, and then give up 10 errors and lose by a run or something. So
I like love baseball now. It's funny because like growing up, I was like a big time football fan, but like zealous. So like every sport is weak, or if you're not playing football, it's not a real sport. But I have kids now, so what I want them to play, because I'm just like all beat up. Went to 4A small town. Football is like the thing. It's what you look up to. Going to the pep rallies and going out there and playing, and I'm just all beat up now. So you rethink what you want your children to play and what would be good for them. So we're in baseball, and I just love baseball now. I think about LSU, Bregman.
He's having a good season. No, I mean, I remember my freshman year of college, and people were trying to like get me to wrap my head around how big college baseball was, and I'd seen what Saturdays were like for football, and people were like, okay, just think about like if the stadium was only limited to 10,000, but the passion and the travel from the state, the fanhood still like migrated into Baton Rouge every weekend for 3 days. I was like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Sure enough, it was opening weekend, and all the RVs were out in the RV park again, down Nicholson Road, and it was the opening of a brand new stadium, and the line was like miles long to get in. I had to wait till the third inning to get into a standing room for my first game, and we won the championship that year. And Astros have always been my favorite like Houston sport, and that just like reinvigorated my passion, like my joy for baseball. It was just really cool to see a different fan base. And
yeah. It's an amazing game. You might be wondering, how the heck does this relate to to faith in business? But I think it relates to everything, because, really, I think morality applies to everything. But actually one of the topics that came up today, what can we talk about today, and is the subject of like winning and losing. When things go wrong and things go right, and what what are your observations? What have you learned as an advisor from that? And so, baseball or sports in general is just, there's just so much things that you teach. If you don't, and it's unfortunate now because we live in such a busy world. It's very often that I'll meet a business owner or something, and either you got two spectrums. They're in my bucket, so they're playing anything and everything, and their house looks like my house. Like I got a basketball section, I got a baseball section, I got now my daughter's in soccer. And so I'm excited about that, because I was trying to find something that I could invest in her. And so I'm glad she's starting to do soccer. But what I was saying is, sometimes you hear people, they're just so busy. And it's like sports is like, oh, I don't want to do another thing, But to me, I think that there's so much life lessons to learn there. My son puts a lot of pressure on himself. He's 6, about to turn 7, but he just always dealing with that pressure, and sometimes I get caught up in like saying like the cliche thing, saying, hey, don't be nervous. But then yesterday I was thinking, he's like, hey, you told me not to be nervous, but I was like, that's not really the truth, because the truth is you're going to be nervous. It's okay to be nervous, but how do you process that? How do you get through that? And so, there's just so many lessons on that. But just one last note on that, I think, we're looking at like summer camps. So we're making the rounds.
That's exciting.
The college round tour.
That's exciting. No.
HBU, Rice, U of H.
I mean, at this point, everyone gets recruited when they're straight out the womb, right?
Yeah, I know.
I think I saw like Nick Saban offer like a kid in like 6th or 7th grade a scholarship. I was like, man.
Is that true?
Yeah, now they offer like middle schoolers scholarships, and you don't like what if you offered. I just don't get like if you offered a quarterback. Yeah, I mean it happens. Yes, it happens. I don't, and it's trickled down. So pretty soon we're gonna have Pop Warner kids getting offers just because. Yeah.
So maybe we should start doing that for accounting. Going in.
You just go, who's the best?
I mean, maybe. With the dwindling supply, that might be an option. But I guess I would say, like, how does that even work? Because, I mean, do they know, like, how, like, genetically, how?
I couldn't tell you.
I mean, but you got to have some of that because, like, in middle school, you know.
Yee-high and
were you big in middle school?
I mean, I was wide.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't tall.
Oh, I mean, I was huge, right?
But I mean, I think the most recent like crazy like growth story I remember is Anthony Davis. I'm pretty sure it was one of the Kentucky guys, and in freshman year of high school, he's like 6'1" or whatever, and then like by his freshman year of college, he was 6'9", 6'10" or whatever, and so like. I'm sure they projected him to be like some sort of guard or forward, and then he's coming in as a center. I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's crazy. But
I'm interested. There has to be someone who's written on the topic because I never understood that. Because I mean, if you were going off of me in middle school, I was like 5'9", you know. But
I wouldn't even. And then so many times you see like especially with the guys, the guys that grow first usually are the ones that like. Then everyone either catches up or gets surpassed. So yeah.
Yeah, we just I used to pray all the time because I was like 5'9". I was like, oh my gosh, I'm capped here. I wanted to be 6 foot. I'm 5'11" and 3/4.
So you round up.
You got me right. I was like so close. Everyone makes fun of me when I say 5'11", 3/4, but I want that 3/4.
Yeah.
It's almost 6 foot.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I wear with my boots. I'm like 6'1". So
there you go. No, I think I'm 5'9", but I say like I'm 5'10", and then in theory, you got to round up to 6 foot.
Yeah. Well, Jagger again won't be playing any basketball.
Nope, no basketball.
All right, let's get into the topic. So I have some notes here. Again, Lords of Capital is all about merging faith and business and how those relate to each other, how we can process those things and work through those things on an everyday basis. And so the topic I have, and I have a direction that I'm going with this in relation to how this specifically relates, and I will articulate that as we go. But as I mentioned earlier, I have here what I've learned as an advisor, why things go wrong and why things go right. So I'll just open it up there with you, and then I'll give you my thoughts on the subject. So you can tackle both of them, one of them. Again, the idea is, you've been around a while. Mm-hmm. What I maybe have 2 years more than you.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've seen a lot. We've been in a lot of situations because we go way back to, growth days, our old practice, and a lot of growth, a lot of pain.
Mm-hmm.
So we've seen it all. So do you have any take on that, on, what you've learned as an advisor, why things go wrong and why things go right?
Transparency and truth, I think, is the biggest thing that flips it, really.
What do you mean by that?
So transparency will probably lend itself to the communication aspect of the relationship. The truth is holding yourself accountable and being truthful in what, saying both sides of it, whether not playing victim or not, not showboating, so to speak, but taking each situation and being honest about it. So things go well, I think it's important to be truthful and transparent there. Why? As a up and coming staff, like if I was new to the business as an advisor, whether I was in tax audit or just consulting, if I lied to myself and said, man, I really kicked butt, I either put in all this time when I didn't, or I really figured it out when I relied on a lot of resources, my peers and stuff like that, well then I'm going to trick myself into, down the line losing that battle, right? Thinking that, there's not much work or something like that. The transparency, also like being humble, right? Like, okay, I had a team that helped me.
I like that one.
The client, it was just a good client, as in good relationship. There was never, constant communication, constant information, transitioning there. I think I'm throwing a lot of just stuff out there, but just being honest to yourself, knowing how that project went, why it was successful, why it was a failure, and knowing that there isn't always going to be a simple answer to everything, right? Why did something go wrong? Yes, a simple answer could be like someone didn't step up, someone dropped the ball.
Humility and honesty. Humility is a good one, and I can tell you I haven't always been a humble person, and I can tell you, but the older I get, the more, there's no reason to not be humble. Humility comes from thinking that you are somehow the source of your success. And so I've had this argument with people, because sometimes people will be like, well, you should be proud of yourself, because you did this and that. And they're talking about things that I accomplished or the way that I'm built, or you're an outlier in this realm and that from that perspective. But the reality is I didn't have any say on my genes or my personality or my, on the way I was wired on my hardware. I didn't get to go through, go to the register and fill out, okay, I want to be openness, I want to be intellectual, and I want to be strategic, and I want to be assertive so I can get, I didn't do that. So, no one does that. So there's no reason to be puffed up. If you're really gifted and talented, great, be humble about it, because you didn't choose that. It's not something that came from you. What comes from you is like using that for, God's glory, for his kingdom. But other than that, because you can't waste skills, you can't waste it. As I say this, I'm thinking about Scotty. Scotty just won the Masters.
Scheffler, yeah.
Man, so when I heard that guy talk, there was just something different about him. And even the people that were talking about him on the announcers, they were like, he's just been the same guy, constant. He hasn't changed. He's won 4 of his last 6 tournaments.
He's on a heater right now. Yeah,
right. That's crazy. And he doesn't get puffed up. He's even killed. And I didn't know about his faith at first, but I knew there was something special about him. I didn't know what. I was like, man, this guy, there's something. Listening to him, watching him, he has something about him. And sure enough, watch his interviews, and just the most humble person, just giving all the glory to God. Hey, God's given me skills, like what we're talking about. He's gifted me with traits, and so therefore I'm humble. Therefore, it's my job to do the very best that I can with what I have, about being a good steward. And I think that if you have that mindset, then you're going to be a more effective person, because, hey, I have these gifts, I have these traits, I didn't give them to myself. I need to do something with them. I need to do something for the kingdom. So I love that one. And the other one is honesty. Jordan Peterson has some really good thoughts about honesty and about being honest and why you want to be honest and not deceitful. One of the things is that you need to be able to trust your gut and your instinct, right? So sometimes we can have days that are chaotic. We can have days that are not orderly, that they're unplanned. You get a message on Teams, you get an email, you get a call, and use your imagination on what those can be. But it throws your whole day off. And in that situation, your plan is like what Mike Tyson said, right? Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. That's what he's talking about. The idea that life is moving from order to chaos, chaos to order. And I like this of Jordan Peterson, and he gives many reasons, to be honest. But one of the reasons that I really like is he says that you need to be honest because you need to be able to trust yourself. You need to be able to trust your instinct. And so within us, innate, subconsciously, we come with a system that is meant to survive in uncertain times. That's why we have fear and anxiety, because those are emotions that we have to help us signal that something might be wrong, and we need to look into that. And the issue with deceit is like having a virus, that if you're constantly overriding your conscience that wants to be honest, wants to be truthful, and you're just constantly lying, being deceitful, you're sort of like, it would be the same thing as getting a virus on your computer, and the computer just stops working the way it needs to, and so then you can't even trust yourself, because you've been living in so much deceit that now when you are facing a situation and you can't trust yourself that what your conscience and gut is telling you is true, because it's now been overridden. And that's kind of like addiction. That's like the system of addiction, is that those systems get overridden. You're like, why would someone continuously do things that hurt themselves and others? Their motivational structure, their systems, their motivational systems, all of that are malfunctioned. And so that's one of the reasons why you want to be honest. How do you check yourself on that? Is it like kind of just organic, or are you having some time to think and contemplate?
I think it's a little bit of everything, right? Because I think you'll find the truth, pieces of the truth, like as throughout like the, what's the word, like as you look back at it, you'll like see it in a different light as well. So I don't know how you, when you're in that addiction, or when you're like snowballed into just lie after lie after lie. Maybe it started as like, I just needed to cover my butt once and whatever. I don't know how you speak on that. I can see how easily you can go down that rabbit hole. But in the end, I think it's having the ability to just take a deep breath and just know, like, what's the worst case? What's the worst that can happen if the truth is coming out, right? You put yourself in that situation, and you put yourself in different situations, and if you're honest with yourself, you can change your ways and stuff, whether it's good or bad. So, I guess we're kind of looking at the tough situations, right? When you're when you're unsuccessful and you're looking at the truth, I think it's natural to want to be like, well, I did everything in my power to, and that might not be wrong either, right? I did everything in my power to get, to satisfy this relationship, whether it was on a deliverable or, or whether that's information or report, whatever it is, right? And I did everything that I could, and in that situation you might have, but what led you to that point, right? And it's those are the things that you have to be honest about, right? Maybe I did everything I could the night before because I pushed things down the road. I didn't think it was it was a lot bigger than I immediately thought, or I didn't have the manpower, or it was just those are when we have to looking into it. Is you can be telling the truth and be wrong,
Mm-hmm.
or you can be telling the truth and it still doesn't answer the entire picture. So that's when I think, okay, so I did everything in my power to get that out. That's my first defense mechanism. And then you take some time, like, okay, well, I didn't schedule it correctly. I had promised it then, and I'd punted on that then, and so I should have probably done it, a little bit sooner or followed up, blah, 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 blah. But, like, there's different circumstances, and so to answer your question is, I think it's important to remember what you say or how you feel initially, and as you take time to, analyze what happened, to be honest. And so, yes, I did everything that I could. That isn't false. But then why did we get there? Why were we in that situation? And those are things that we can address, or those are things. So if you can say, like, if you can think about it, you take that situation and everything you could have done that night before or on that certain project, and then you look at other items that you can fix, we'll put that same effort and passion, but just improve your process. And then then you go back and you're maybe not at fault, maybe you are, but then there are things that you can improve to avoid it later on.
So I got my surface here now, because remember I told you I'm like not good at I'm like, the Bible says this, and fact check me. I'm gonna fact check. We're fact checking as we go. So you can fact check me. Proverbs 14:12. I'm gonna say different translations because I think it, but this is kind of what I think you were saying, or this is what came to me as you're saying, like, hey, you can think you're doing the right, but then really it's like go back and look and kind of have that that time to reflect. Mm-hmm. And it says, there's a way that appears to be right, but in the end it leads to death. There is a way which seems right to a man and appears straight before him, but it's the way of death. And in death, I don't know what the word death means in that, the Bible has so many different applications of meaning, that's what makes the Bible so unique. But to me, obviously it can mean literal, Yeah. I mean, you're like, you think I'm doing the right thing, and then boom, something bad happens to you. But I think it can also mean, like, there's a metaphysical part, there's an abstract part about it, and that's kind of what you're thinking is. But that's where humility comes from. See, this humility is that you realize that I'm a sinner, my heart is deceitful, that that left, that without Christ, I'm selfish, I'm a hater, I'm all those things, I mean, think about who you were before that. Think about who you could be without that, I mean, less, and this is a whole nother podcast, but I think that's what society is ultimately always figures out. Like, Ray Dalio talks about archetypes. Archetypes is basically patterns of society. That's what they see. And there is archetypes. There is patterns that we can look and that we witness every 40 years, every 50 years, every 60 years. And that's why there's the whole even idea that if you look at our country, we've had great revivals, spiritual revivers. Like, we've had 3 of them. We haven't had one. We haven't seen one in our lifetime, but they've been there in the past. The baby boomers can tell you. Boomer can tell you. But why? Well, the last one happened after the 60s. Because society has this archetype where it's like, okay, let's do what's right in our eyes. Who cares about morality? Let's all be relative. But we know where that leads. And it leads to chaos. Mm-hmm. It leads to disorder. It leads to bad things for your neighborhood. I mean, that's why everyone in the 60s that's really when people started moving to the suburbs. because the cities were destroyed by the sexual revolution. They were destroyed by drugs. People didn't want that. And then that destroyed the cities, and the cities became ghettos and became, it's like, oh, okay, maybe this isn't the right thing. It's like, just play that out forward, just play, okay, where is this going to end? But that's what humility is about. So you see, humility is about realizing that there's a conflict between what you want and what the Spirit wants. There's a conflict between your will and God's will. And that's humility, is saying my will is going to drive me somewhere, put me in a situation that is not good for my life. And I've been there time and time again. And then I have those moments like you are, and I'm like, okay, how did I get here? Like, no joke, I got caught up in the old like GME, AMC stuff. I got caught up in that. I mean, a lot of people did. I got caught up in that for like 2 months. And I was just I didn't make any money. I lost money, a good amount of money. And then I look back, I'm like, wow, how much time did I waste? And I was, now I lost money. Now I got to tell my wife I lost money. It's like, it's like, well, where did I go wrong? But, and you really think about it, it was greed. It was greed. And see, if I was being honest with myself, it's like, is this really smart? Is this really what God wants me to do? The answer is no. And maybe I don't know, but maybe I get around my brothers and we talk about it, and they're going to tell me, no, that's probably not good. And that would have saved me thousands of dollars. That would have saved me issues with my relationship and trust, because I had to tell my wife. She's like, what? And then finally we got over it. I didn't want to tell her at first because I'm like, wow, look what I did, But fortunately we got over that. I had the courage. It was like all these things. I was like, how did I get here? How did I get here? And I realized, because I was Proverbs 14:12. There's a way that seems right to a person, but in the end it leads to death. And that's where it is. And so the humility is like, Thomas, we're going to have disagreements. We're not always going to be on the same thing. But if we have the same values, as we can go back as colleagues and as brothers and go back and say, well, what does the Lord say about this? And filter everything through that. So that's why, as an organization, we're talking about values and bringing these things in. And capitalism and the West, undeniable, if you look at our laws, if you look at how they're built, are Judeo-Christian. Don't murder, don't steal. The West is so integrated with that, you cannot disconnect it. And to disconnect it would be like doing something very dramatic, which would be like, hey, let's just not wear clothes to work. Like, it'd be so like, people don't even realize how profound and how like consequential it would be to try to disconnect Judeo-Christian principles with Western way of living. Like, you couldn't even conceive what could possibly happen. And anyone that thinks that is just, again, not being humble. So I don't know if you have any final thoughts on that, or what your thought.
No, well, I think you were touching about it earlier, and it kind of goes back to our last conversation. But in the end, humble yourself just to trust the Lord, and just like you're a vessel, right? You empty yourself and be like, okay, this is what I'm good at. These are my traits, and just allow God to use me as a vessel, whether that's love and, your workplace, I talked about last time, or, to guide your, decision making, and just know that, like, if you're acting in the best interest, or like just principles and morality of just like being a loving person and Christ to people, then, in the end, like, you're, like things will happen, good or bad, but like you are like on a path that like there is an end goal that you can see, and it's tangible. So just be trusting, taking that leap of faith, and being that vessel.
So I'm going to end with one thing that you're saying, that James 4:10 came to me. humble yourself in the sight of the Lord and he will lift you up. And I think that's some of what you're saying. So we're going to end there. I think this is like part one, because I had so many notes here I didn't even get into, and on the issue of what I've learned as an advisor, why things go wrong, why things go right. So we touched on some of that. It went a couple different directions, but that's okay. We'll just let the Spirit lead. But yeah, so we'll have a part 2 on this. And again, subscribe to our channel, subscribe to our podcast. We're on YouTube. We're also on Spotify. Also, spread the word, spread the love. If you're enjoying this content, we would love for you to let your friends and family know about this, let your coworkers know about this. Again, this is Lords of Capital. It's all about merging business and faith together. And we will talk to you again next week. God bless.